The massive viewing screen at Earth's Space Command Center turned blood red as emergency signals flashed across its surface. Admiral James Stone stood frozen, his coffee cup suspended halfway to his lips. The celebration around him died instantly as the horror unfolded before their eyes. Mars Colony 7, humanity's proudest achievement in space colonization, was under attack. "Sir, we're receiving multiple distress calls from the colony," reported Officer Mike from his console. His voice trembled slightly as he continued, "Imperial warships. They're attacking without warning. Civilian areas are being targeted. The timing couldn't have been worse, or perhaps better, depending on how you looked at it. Just hours ago, Earth had finished construction of its first true battle fleet. 500 warships equipped with revolutionary quantum drive technology and weapons that would make their ancestors' nuclear arsenals look like firecrackers." Admiral Stone placed his cup down carefully, his weathered face hardening into a mask of determination. "Show me the live feed," he commanded. The screen shifted to show massive purple-hulled Imperial ships raining death upon the red Martian landscape. Their energy weapons carved glowing trails through the protective domes of the colony. Emergency force fields flickered desperately, trying to contain the atmosphere within the breached sections. "Get me the Council. Now." Stone's voice was calm, but everyone in the command center could feel the fury radiating from him. Within minutes, the viewing screen split into 12 sections, showing the faces of Earth's United Council. Some members were clearly rushed, having been woken from sleep in various time zones, but all wore expressions of grim understanding. "Members of the Council," Stone began, "the Galactic Empire has attacked Mars Colony 7. Civilian targets are being hit. We're looking at potential casualties in the thousands." He paused, letting the information sink in. "We have a fleet ready. We have the technology. I request immediate authorization for a military response." The council members looked at each other through their video feeds. For 1,000 years, the Galactic Empire had ruled the stars with an iron fist. They had discovered Earth 50 years ago, and had dismissed humans as primitive beings, useful only for resource extraction and cheap labor. They hadn't bothered to conquer Earth outright, considering it beneath their notice. That had been their first mistake. "The Empire believes we are primitive," continued Stone. "They don't know about our technological leaps. They don't know about our quantum drives, our advanced AI systems, or our matter conversion weapons. They think we're still playing with chemical rockets and laser pointers." His eyes blazed with controlled anger. "Let's show them how wrong they are." The council vote was unanimous. Within an hour, Earth's first battle fleet powered up their engines. The ships were sleek, black vessels that seemed to drink in the light around them. Unlike the gaudy purple monstrosities of the Empire, these ships were built for efficiency and deadliness. In the flagship's command center, Admiral Stone studied the tactical display. The Empire had grown fat and lazy over its millennium of unchallenged rule. Their technology had stagnated. Meanwhile, humanity had done what it did best: innovate, adapt, and overcome. All ships, battle formations. Stone's voice echoed across the fleet's communication channels. "Today, we show the galaxy that humanity will not bow to tyrants. Today, we begin the liberation of not just our species, but all species under Imperial control." 500 ships, representing the combined industrial might of a unified Earth, moved into position. Their quantum drives hummed with power that the Empire's scientists had deemed impossible to harness. Their weapons held destructive potential that Imperial engineers would consider theoretical at best. As the fleet prepared to jump, Stone thought about all the dismissed warnings some Imperial analysts had given about Earth, about how dangerous it was to leave humans to develop independently, about how quickly they adapted and advanced. "All ships, prepare for quantum jump," he commanded. "Let's go remind the Empire why they should have finished what they started." The fleet vanished in a flash of light, leaving behind a worried but proud Earth. The last straw had broken. And humanity was about to show the galaxy why it was a terrible mistake to underestimate them. Emperor Marcus VII lounged on his crystal throne, his purple robes flowing around him as he watched the holographic report of Mars colony's destruction with mild amusement. The throne room's golden walls reflected the dancing lights of the display, casting eerie shadows across the massive chamber. Those primitive humans, he chuckled, waving his hand dismissively at the Imperial general standing before him. Did they really think they could establish colonies without our permission? General Paul, commander of the Imperial First Fleet, bowed deeply. My Emperor, we've received reports of unusual activity around Earth. Their orbital stations air. Spare me the details about their toy ships, the Emperor interrupted, taking a sip from his jeweled goblet. What harm can they do with their primitive technology? They still use combustion engines for space travel. His laughter echoed through the vast chamber. But in the lower levels of the Imperial Palace, things weren't quite so amusing. Junior analyst Tom stared at his screen with growing concern. The data didn't make sense. Earth's usual space traffic had completely vanished. Their communication satellites had gone dark. It was as if they had suddenly. Sir, Tom called out to his supervisor. I think we should alert High Command. These readings. Quiet, boy. His supervisor snapped. Do you want to disturb the Emperor with fairy tales about primitive humans? They're probably hiding in their bunkers, crying about their lost colony. Meanwhile, in the void of space, Fleet Commander Robert Hayes stood on the bridge of the Earth flagship Vengeance, studying the tactical display. The human fleet had emerged from quantum space at their first waypoint, completely undetected by Imperial sensors. Status report, Hayes ordered quietly. All ships maintaining stealth configuration. Commander, his tactical officer replied. Imperial detection systems are still based on light speed sensors. They have no idea we're here. Hayes allowed himself a small smile. The Empire's arrogance had led them to ignore basic scientific advancement for centuries. They thought their technology was the peak of achievement. They were wrong. Back in the Imperial Palace, Emperor Marcus VII was hosting a celebration. Hundreds of noble aliens from across the Empire filled the Grand Hall, their exotic forms draped in expensive clothes and jewels. They'd raised their glasses to the successful punishment of the primitive humans. To the Empire, the Emperor shouted, raising his glass, eternal and invincible. The crowd cheered, but their celebration was interrupted by a junior officer who burst into the hall, his face pale with terror. My Emperor, he gasped. Our primary shipyard. It's gone. The music stopped. The Emperor's glass slipped from his hand, shattering on the marble floor. What do you mean gone? He demanded, rising from his seat. Just gone, my Emperor. Something appeared out of nowhere. Our sensors didn't detect anything until it was too late. The entire shipyard, destroyed in minutes. The Emperor's face turned purple with rage. Impossible. Who dares? Before he could finish, another officer ran in. My Emperor, we're detecting massive energy signatures appearing throughout Imperial space. They're unlike anything we've ever seen. In the command center of the Vengeance, Commander Hayes watched as reports flooded in from the strike teams. Phase 1 was complete. The Empire's main shipyard was destroyed. Now came Phase 2. All ships, he broadcast to the fleet, commence Operation Thunderstrike. Show these Imperial dogs what happens when you underestimate humanity. Across Imperial space, human warships appeared from quantum space, their black hulls absorbing light like angry shadows. Their weapons charged with energy that Imperial sensors couldn't even classify. In his throne room, Emperor Marcus VI watched in horror as report after report came in. His mighty empire, unchallenged for 1,000 years, was under attack by the very primitives he had mocked hours earlier. How? He whispered, his arrogance finally cracking. How is this possible? The answer was simple, though he wouldn't understand it. Never underestimate a species that evolved through constant adaptation and warfare. The Empire had just woken a sleeping giant, and their 1,000 years of complacency was about to meet humanity's 1,000 years of innovation compressed into mere decades. The real war was about to begin. The Imperial shipyard hung in space like a massive purple spider web, its docking arms stretching out in all directions. It was the pride of the Empire, capable of building their largest warships. At least it was until today. Commander Thomas stood on the bridge of the stealth cruiser Silent Death, watching the target through advanced scanning systems. His ship led the first strike team of 20 human vessels, all running dark and completely invisible to Imperial sensors. All ships in position, his communications officer whispered, as if the enemy might hear them through the vacuum of space. Thomas nodded, his face illuminated by the soft blue glow of tactical displays. Begin the countdown. Remember, everyone, we're making history today. The human ships had positioned themselves at crucial points around the shipyard. Their matter conversion weapons were primed, their targeting systems locked. Not a single alarm had been raised on the Imperial facility. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Fire. 20 beams of concentrated energy, invisible to Imperial sensors, struck simultaneously. The results were beyond even the human commander's expectations. The Imperial shields, considered impenetrable by the Empire's standards, didn't just fail, they shattered like glass. Second volley, Thomas ordered calmly. The next wave of shots carved through the shipyard's main structure like a hot knife through butter. Massive sections of the facility began breaking apart, their purple hull plating turning red-hot before exploding into space. Inside the shipyard, panic erupted. Imperial officers ran to battle stations, their training useless against an enemy they couldn't even detect. Their sensor systems, designed to detect engine emissions and energy signatures, showed absolutely nothing. "Where are they?" screamed the Imperial shipyard commander. "How are they hitting us?" The answer came in the form of the human ships finally dropping their stealth fields. The black vessels seemed to materialize out of nowhere, their hulls absorbing nearby light to create an intimidating sight. Imperial forces. Thomas broadcast on all frequencies. "This is Commander Thomas of the United Earth Defense Force. Your facility is lost. Surrender now." The response was predictable. The Imperial commander ordered his defense fleet to attack. 30 Imperial warships, each one massive and heavily armed, moved to engage the much smaller human vessels. "They never learn," Thomas sighed. "All ships, combat formation Delta. Show them what real space warfare looks like." What followed wasn't a battle, it was a slaughter. The human ships moved with impossible speed and precision, their quantum drives allowing them to jump short distances instantly. The Imperial ships, relying on conventional engines, couldn't keep up. "Sir," called out Thomas's tactical officer, "their weapons can't even penetrate our basic shields." It was true. The Imperial energy weapons, unchanged for centuries, splashed harmlessly against the advanced human defenses. Meanwhile, each shot from the human fleet found its mark with devastating accuracy. In the space of 10 minutes, the entire Imperial defense fleet was reduced to floating debris. The shipyard itself was nothing more than a twisted wreck, its pieces scattered across space like a broken toy. "Signal from the surface stations," reported the communications officer. "They're surrendering." Thomas nodded. "Accept their surrender. Prepare boarding teams. I want all their technical data secured before." "Sir." "Multiple quantum signatures detected. Our reinforcements are arriving." Through the quantum space emerged the main human fleet, led by Admiral Stone himself. 500 warships, their black hulls gleaming against the starfield, moved into formation around the destroyed shipyard. "Good work, Commander Thomas." Admiral Stone's voice came through the command channel. "The Empire's biggest shipyard, destroyed in less than an hour. I'd say that sends quite a message." "Thank you, sir," Thomas replied. "The local forces have surrendered. What are our next orders?" "Secure the system," Stone commanded. Then prepare for Phase 3. The Empire thought they could bully us with their outdated technology and rigid thinking. Time to show them what happens when humanity decides to fight back. As Thomas watched the human fleet move into position, he couldn't help but feel a hint of pity for the Empire. They had no idea what was coming. Their 1,000 years of stagnation was about to meet humanity's relentless drive for advancement. The real shock and awe was just beginning. News of the shipyard's destruction spread across Imperial space like wildfire. On 100 worlds, alien species who had suffered under Imperial rule for centuries watched their holographic displays in amazement. The invincible Empire had been bloodied, and hope began to bloom. The Imperial News Network tried desperately to control the story. Minor damage to auxiliary facilities, they claimed. Terrorist attack repelled. But the truth couldn't be hidden. Too many had seen the wreckage. Too many had witnessed the black ships that appeared from nowhere and vanished just as quickly. In the war room of the Vengeance, Admiral Stone studied the galaxy map with his commanders. Hundreds of dots represented Imperial worlds, and many were now flashing red. Another uprising on planet Beta 7, reported his intelligence officer. The Rock people have taken control of 3 major cities. They're requesting our support. Stone nodded. The Rock people, a species of silicon-based beings, had been used as slave labor in the Empire's mines for centuries. Now they were fighting back. Send Strike Team Delta to assist them, he ordered. Provide them with shield generators and weapons. It's time the Empire learned what happens when you make enemies of entire species. Across Imperial space, similar scenes played out. Species that had been conquered and oppressed saw their chance for freedom. The winged ones of planet Sigma took control of their atmospheric cities. The deep dwellers of the ocean worlds cut off the Empire's underwater mining operations. Everywhere, resistance fighters emerged from hiding. On the Imperial capital world, Emperor Marcus VI raged at his generals. How can you not stop them? They're appearing everywhere at once. My Emperor, one general stammered. Their technology. We can't track their ships. They appear, strike, and vanish before we can respond. Our weapons are useless against their shields. Then send more ships. The Emperor shouted. We have thousands of warships. Use them. But that was exactly what Admiral Stone had planned for. As Imperial fleets moved to crush the rebellions, human strike teams attacked their now undefended supply lines. Fuel depots exploded. Ammunition stores vanished. Communication relays went dark. Strike Team Alpha reporting. A voice crackled over the command channel. Imperial fuel depot in Sector 7 destroyed. Their 3rd fleet will be stranded in 2 days. Strike Team Beta here. We've delivered shields and weapons to the resistance on planet Gamma. Imperial forces are retreating. Stone allowed himself a small smile. The Empire had spent centuries making enemies. Now those enemies were rising up, armed with human technology and burning with the desire for revenge. On planet Delta 9, Commander Lisa led her team in supporting the local uprising. The natives, a species of 4-armed beings known for their engineering skills, had been forced to build weapons for the Empire. Now they turned those same weapons against their oppressors. The Imperial Governor is requesting terms of surrender, Lisa reported to Stone. The locals have complete control of the planetary defense systems. Accept their surrender, Stone replied. But make sure the locals are in charge of the negotiations. This is their planet. Let them decide the terms. This was another key part of the human strategy. Unlike the Empire, they didn't seek to rule. They offered partnership, alliance, and most importantly, freedom. Back on the Imperial capital, panic was setting in. The carefully maintained order of 1,000 years was crumbling. Imperial nobles packed their valuables and fled to their private estates. Military commanders discovered that their supposedly loyal alien troops were turning against them. Another sector lost, reported Stone's tactical officer. The Empire's forces are stretched too thin. They're starting to abandon outlying systems to protect their core worlds. Stone studied the map again. In just days, the mighty empire had lost control of nearly 30% of its territory. But he knew the real fight was still to come. The empire's elite fleets were gathering, preparing for a massive counterattack. Let them come, he thought. They still haven't learned. It's not about the size of your fleet or the number of your troops. It's about innovation, adaptation, and the will to fight. The chain reaction had begun, and nothing the Empire could do would stop it now. The imperial throne world of Imperialis glowed like a purple jewel in space, its 3 artificial rings spinning slowly around the planet. For 1,000 years, it had been the unquestioned center of power in the galaxy. Now, it was about to witness its final sunset. Lieutenant Anna stood at her combat station aboard the human stealth ship, Shadow Strike, watching the planet through advanced sensors. The Empire had gathered its remaining forces here. Over 2,000 warships formed a defensive sphere around their capital world. They're really throwing everything they have at us, she commented to her crew. Look at those energy readings. They've even activated their ancient defense systems. The Empire's last line of defense was impressive, at least by their standards. Massive energy cannons dotted the planet's surface. Shield generators created overlapping barriers in the atmosphere. The 3 rings weren't just for show. They were actually weapon platforms. All ships report ready, came Admiral Stone's voice over the fleet channel. Remember the plan. We hit them from all sides at once. Don't let them concentrate their forces. In his palace on the surface, Emperor Marcus VI paced nervously. The massive view screen showed his gathered fleet, the largest assembly of Imperial warships in 500 years. Let them come, he declared, trying to sound confident. No force has ever breached the defenses of Imperialis. These humans will break themselves against our walls. As if in answer to his words, alarms began blaring throughout the palace. On the view screen, black ships began appearing everywhere at once. Not in one place, not in a single fleet, but all around the planet simultaneously. Impossible, shouted his admiral. There must be over 1,000 of them. The human fleet had grown. For every imperial world that rebelled, more ships were added to their forces. Former imperial shipyards, now free, worked day and night to build more vessels using human designs. Lieutenant Anna's fingers flew over her control panel as the battle began. First wave, firing now. The Empire had expected a traditional space battle, fleets exchanging fire at long range. Instead, human ships simply appeared inside their formation, their quantum drives allowing them to bypass the defensive screen entirely. Their shields are failing in sectors 3 through 7, Anna reported. The ancient defense platforms can't track our ships. On the planet's surface, panic spread through the Imperial city. The supposedly impenetrable planetary shields flickered and died as human weapons overloaded them. The mighty defense cannons, proud relics of Imperial engineering, couldn't even target the fast-moving human vessels. Emperor Marcus VI watched in horror as his fleet was torn apart. The human ships moved like angry wasps, striking and vanishing before his ships could respond. Their black hulls seemed to drink in weapons fire, while their own shots pierced Imperial shields like paper. My Emperor, his admiral's voice shook, we've lost contact with the outer defense ring. The second ring is reporting critical damage. The humans, they're not just defeating us. They're taking our defenses intact. This was another part of the human strategy. Instead of destroying everything, they captured key facilities. Each Imperial technology, no matter how outdated, was studied and improved upon. Lieutenant Anna's ship led the final assault on the inner defense ring. The massive structure, miles long and bristling with weapons, fell silent as precision strikes disabled its control centers. Inner ring secured, she reported, moving on to planetary defenses. From his palace, Emperor Marcus VI watched his last defenses crumble. The black ships now moved freely through his atmosphere, systematically disabling rather than destroying key installations. How? He whispered, sinking into his throne. How could they do this to us? The answer came in Admiral Stone's voice, broadcasting on all frequencies. Emperor Marcus VI, your defenses are down. Your fleet is destroyed. We are not here to annihilate your people, but your empire of oppression ends today. As human ships took up positions around the imperial palace, their black hulls reflecting the setting sun, the emperor finally understood. His empire had spent 1,000 years standing still, while humanity had never stopped moving forward. The heart of the empire was about to beat its last. The marble halls of the imperial palace echoed with chaos as nobles and officials ran in every direction. Through the massive crystal windows, they could see the black shapes of human ships hovering in the purple sky of Imperialis, a constant reminder of their defeat. Emperor Marcus VI sat alone in his throne room, watching emergency broadcasts from across his crumbling empire. One by one, imperial worlds were declaring independence or pledging allegiance to the human-led coalition. "My emperor," a guard rushed in, his purple armor dirty and damaged. "The outer palace defenses have fallen. The humans, they're inside the palace grounds." The emperor gripped his throne's armrests tightly. "What of our elite guard? The palace shield generators?" "The elite guard's weapons don't work against their armor. And the shield generators?" The guard swallowed hard. "They bypassed them completely. Just appeared inside our defenses like ghosts." Outside the palace walls, Commander Bill led the human assault team. Unlike the Empire's flashy purple armor, human soldiers wore black combat suits that bent light around them, making them nearly invisible. "Team Alpha, secure the East Wing," he ordered through his neural link. "Team Beta, West Wing. Remember, minimal force. We're here to arrest, not kill." Inside the palace's command center, Imperial officers frantically deleted files and smashed control panels. They froze when black armored figures simply walked through the supposedly solid walls. Human phase shift technology, making physical barriers meaningless. "Please step away from the consoles," a human soldier announced calmly. "All information will be preserved for the War Crimes Tribunal." Throughout the palace, similar scenes played out. The Emperor's elite guards found their energy weapons useless against human shield technology. Their armor, unchanged for centuries, offered no protection against human stun weapons. In orbit, Admiral Stone coordinated the final phase of the operation. His display showed hundreds of Imperial ships dropping out of light speed, but not to fight. Another Imperial battle group requesting surrender, his communications officer reported. "That makes 37 fleets in the last hour." Stone nodded. "Accept their surrender. Direct them to the processing stations. Make sure they understand. We're not here for revenge." This was what made the humans different from the Empire. Where the Empire would have executed surrendering forces, humans offered amnesty to those who laid down arms peacefully. Back in the throne room, Emperor Marcus VI heard the fighting getting closer. The sounds of stun weapons and falling bodies echoed through the corridors. "You should have finished us when you had the chance," he muttered to himself. "Now look what you've created." The massive doors to the throne room burst open. Commander Bill walked in, leading a team of human soldiers. Their black armor seemed to absorb the light from the ornate crystal chandeliers. "Emperor Marcus VI." Bill's voice was clear and firm. "In the name of the United Earth Defense Force and the newly formed Galactic Coalition, you are under arrest for crimes against sentient beings." The Emperor stood, his purple robes flowing around him. "You think this is over? You think you can just walk in and end 1,000 years of Imperial rule?" "It's already over," Bill replied. "Your fleet is gone. Your worlds have rebelled. Your own nobles are surrendering. The Empire died the moment it chose to attack Earth." As if to emphasize his words, a holographic display sprang to life, showing scenes from across the galaxy. Imperial governors surrendering to local resistance forces. Former slave species taking control of their worlds. Human ships providing aid and protection to newly freed planets. This is impossible," the Emperor whispered. "No, Bill corrected him. This was inevitable. You ruled through fear and stagnation. We offer progress and partnership. As human soldiers led the Emperor away in energy cuffs, Admiral Stone's voice echoed through all communication channels across the former empire. To all worlds and species, the war is over. The empire has fallen. But this is not an ending. This is a beginning. Together, we will build something better than an empire. We will build a future. The 1,000-year empire had finally collapsed, not through destruction, but through the simple power of hope and progress. 1 month after the fall of the empire, the great hall of the former imperial palace looked very different. The gaudy purple decorations were gone, replaced by simple but elegant furnishings representing all species of the galaxy. Sunlight streamed through the crystal windows, falling on an unprecedented gathering of representatives from 100 worlds. Admiral Stone stood at the central podium, his simple black uniform a stark contrast to the colorful diplomatic attire around him. The hall buzzed with activity as former enemies sat side by side, discussing their shared future. The final report from the Liberation Fleet, his aide whispered, handing him a datapad. The last Imperial holdouts have surrendered. The war is officially over. Stone nodded, then raised his hand for silence. The hall quickly grew quiet, all eyes turning to him. 1 month ago, he began, his voice carrying to every corner of the vast chamber. We stood here as enemies. Today, we gather as allies. He gestured to the assembled crowd. Look around you. Rock people sitting beside deep dwellers. Winged ones sharing tables with surface dwellers. This is what the Empire feared most. Unity through cooperation, not force. In a secure holding facility below the palace, former Emperor Marcus VI watched the proceedings on a view screen. His purple robes had been replaced by simple gray clothing. His face showed not anger, but confusion. I still don't understand, he said to his guard. How did you do it? How did you advance so quickly? The guard, a young human named Jack, considered the question. Because we never stopped trying to improve. Every failure taught us something. Every setback made us stronger. While your empire stood still, we kept moving forward. Back in the Great Hall, Stone continued his address. Today we establish the Galactic Coalition. Not an empire, not a dictatorship, but a partnership of equals. Each world will govern itself. Each species will maintain its culture. We will share technology, trade freely, and face future challenges together. The hall erupted in applause. Representatives from formerly enslaved races wept openly. Species that had been enemies under imperial rule shook hands or tentacles or wings. The first act of the coalition, Stone announced, will be to establish the Technology Sharing Initiative. Human quantum drive technology will be made available to all member worlds. Our medical advances, our defensive systems, our agricultural improvements, all will be shared. This was what truly set humans apart from the Empire. Where the Empire hoarded knowledge, humans shared it. Where the Empire demanded obedience, humans offered partnership. In orbit above the capital, Lieutenant Anna watched the proceedings from her ship's bridge. The former Imperial defense rings were being converted into trading stations, where once purple warships had patrolled. Ships of all shapes and sizes now moved freely. Another transport arriving from Earth, her sensor officer reported. This one's carrying terraform specialists to help restore worlds stripped by Imperial mining. Anna smiled. This was humanity's true strength, not just winning the war, but building the peace. In the Great Hall, Stone was concluding his speech. Let today be remembered not as the day an empire fell, but as the day a galaxy united. Not through conquest, but through cooperation. Not through fear, but through hope. He raised his hand, and the massive view screen behind him lit up, showing images from across the galaxy. Former Imperial shipyards now building medical ships, slave mines transformed into automated facilities, oppressed worlds blooming with new life under advanced terraform technology. This is our promise to the galaxy, Stone declared. Together, We will build something greater than any empire. We will create a future where advancement never stops, where knowledge is shared, not hoarded, and where every species can reach its full potential." As the assembled representatives rose in thunderous applause, the sun reached its zenith over the capital city. Its light caught the black hulls of the human ships in orbit, making them shine like beacons in the sky. The empire was gone. In its place, something new had begun. Not an age of stagnation and fear, but an era of progress and hope. A new dawn had truly arrived.